Hello my colouring friends, it's me, Liv, Colouring with Liv, and in this video I'll just be going over some of my favourite colouring books as well as doing some paper quality comparisons. So here are a few of my favourites, but what inspired me to kind of make this video was after I had coloured this page in Small Victories by Johanna Basford. I made like a few videos on how I did this page, and then afterwards I thought, oh, if anybody else is doing this colouring page and wants to share it, I thought maybe I'll make a Facebook group and you can share it there. Because I think that out of all the social media platforms, that Facebook and their Facebook groups are really good on sharing what you've done and completed. So yeah, if you want to join me there, I'm just trying out the group. I'm not too sure if I'm going to keep the group or not, but I'm going to try it out. So I've named it Colouring with Liv and Buddies. So that's that one. And I guess we could start with my worst paper quality issue, which was this one. So this was done, I'll just move this out of the way. So this was done in A Million Cute Animals by Lulu, Mayo. And I started off doing some watercolour. So even though it technically didn't bleed through, the piling was so bad. I can't remember if I did try to do like Neocolours and watercolour. Because I did 2 layers, but yeah, even on the first layer it was pretty bad, and on this bit here I was using my watercolour pencils. But I think the reason why it ripped might not be because of Lulu Mayo's books particularly. It was probably because I used, let me just show you. It was probably because I used this frog tape. So it says like it keeps paint out, and I thought, oh, it's just a painter's masking tape. So therefore, you know, I thought this was going to be like just a regular kind of masking tape, but it's actually supposed to be for walls. So yeah, it's not really supposed to be for paper. So what I was trying to do, instead of using a liquid mask, I'll show you that. So this is my liquid mask. And that's by Sennelier. And it's a drawing gum, so you just shake it and just show you that it's on a fine needle. There we go. And then you have to carefully slot that needle back in the centre, otherwise it dries up. So yeah, that page went really wrong, but I don't know if you can see it on the camera. So as you can see, like even before I did the masking bit, the watercolour, the piling on it was really bad. So I kind of avoided doing any watercolour in Lulu Mayo's books. and that's when I decided to do stuff like pastels instead, so soft pastels. And the soft pastels that I use are, so for that one I decided to use soft pastels. So I just have a cheap set of these Faber Castell soft pastels, and it wants to, so there we go. So it's just the cheap set. I think these were like 13 euros or something like that. Can't remember exactly. But yeah, not that expensive. And yeah, so I think just either doing it on its own or with some pencils and watercolor pens, water markers rather than alcohol markers is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so just doing that. And the reason why there's no transfer here on the other page is because I used a fixative. So the fixative that I used is by Sennelier. So this is the soft pastel fixative, and I also have this one for oil pastels. Because I use polychromos, I thought I can use some on my colouring pencils as well, which I have done, and yeah, that's fine. But I guess when you're doing like a whole mix of media, like using soft pastels, I feel like this one doesn't really work, so you have to get this one. And yeah, so this one really works well on soft pastels if you want to do soft pastels. And the next thing I could talk about is that I tried some alcohol markers, and that obviously goes through the page. So always put a piece of paper, like just a printer paper, a sheet or two. I usually try and do 2 just in case there's any extra bleed through, and then you won't mess up this page as well. So if you're sacrificing one page, you don't want to be sacrificing another page as well. So that's a good tip as well to do. So when I realised that, it was when I was colouring in this book, in Millie Marotta's Tropical Wonderland. So this was one of my very first books, and I did this page with my first kind of alcohol markers, and as you can see there was some bleed through where I used the alcohol markers, and because I didn't put any paper down, that's when I got the transfer onto this page. So then I messed up that page as well, which even went through this bit a little bit, just a tiny bit. So yeah, that's a good point to make. And in this book I was just testing out some of my just my markers, like just regular water markers, and my watercolour pencils. So because I use water, there was a bit of, I don't know if you can see that, there's a kind of residue. And then this was just me testing out my cheaper pencils versus my polychromos pencils. This was when I first got the book, and I was just testing out different kind of media, different pens that I had in my collection. That was coloured pencils. So yeah, coloured pencils are always the safer bet. And I also did use distress inks on this page. So before I was thinking that something like distress inks was just like a watercolour because I use them like a watercolour, but I'm starting to learn that inks can behave differently. So if you're buying, like going for watercolour pencils and you're looking at the Derwent Inktense, it's made with ink. So it's a little bit different and it reacts a little bit differently. I can't really tell you much about it because I only really did one page with it, and I don't own any Derwent Inktense, but people have said that you can't reactivate it once it's down on the page, whereas my watercolour pencils, you can reactivate them. So I have the Museum Aquarelle watercolour pencils. So let's find a page with that in. So this is a book, was it Worlds of Wonder by Johanna Basford, where I tried my watercolour pencils in this book. So this was where I could reactivate the ink. So I don't know if you can see it better there. And yeah, so here you can, it doesn't go through the page, but there is this kind of warped effect, this crinkled effect. And if you're using any kind of water media, well, at least when I have, this will happen, this kind of crinkled warped effect. So when you go through the book, you think, oh, it's just smooth, it doesn't look like that will happen, but it does. And on this one, I used a whole lot of media. I used watercolour pencils, acrylic, colouring pencils. I started off with Neo colours and then I covered it with oil pastels. So yeah, with this one, like I didn't protect it too well, so that's when some of those oil pastels went on to the next page. But yeah, it just has this kind of very slight bleed through here on this side, if you can see, but that was because I used water for the Neo colours. Yeah, you don't need to use any water for oil pastels because they're made with oils, but I did blend it with some mineral spirit, so maybe it was because of the mineral spirit. So I'll show you what mineral spirit I use. So I use this one, the Sennelier Odourless mineral spirit. So yeah, I just use this with, I'll show you. I just use it with a little pipette, which I put, now I've got some sharpenings, but I use like an old jam jar or yogurt jar, not obviously with sharpenings in it, but yeah, I just collect jars, and I can have like one for water or a couple for water, one for mineral spirit, one for sharpenings. So yeah, so you just take a few drops of that, put it in a jar, and then just use some like cotton buds. So cotton buds, Q-tips, I think you call them in America, earbud things. Yeah, so that's what I use for any kind of oil pastels. So with the oil pastels, I tend to go for, I'll just show you, I tend to go for this brush, the Textura brush, because I find it's a very stiff brush. So I tend to kind of just paint that on, and I can also use this brush on top of colouring pencils as well, but I kind of switch between this brush and the cotton buds. So the cotton buds are also good for doing pastel work. So I'll just show you a page I've done in here with pastels. So this one I've done with pastels, and as you can see, there is no bleed through and there's no warping effect. So it's really, really good. So yeah, I really love Kerby's books. I think they're just fantastic. I love it, I love it, I love it. Yeah, so speaking about Kerby, yeah, I did last year in 2025 most of my pages in this book that I coloured, but also in this book. So just have a flip through of what I've done in this one. So I did colouring pencils, which obviously you're not going to get any bleed through. I did this one with watercolours, and then I tried Neo colours, and then I put watercolour on top. But I found that actually you have this kind of white waxy residue if you do that. So I think the best thing to do is to put watercolour first and then use the Neo colours because of that waxy residue. And because I wasn't using that many layers, you don't really get any kind of crinkling, warping effect. And then obviously there's the pastel one, which nothing happened to the next page. But then when I did this page, with the elephant, I used watercolour, Neocolor, colouring pencils. Did I use some markers? I don't think so. I think I just used mainly watercolour. So this was the kind of crinkling, warping effect that you get, but no bleed through. So that's that page. So as you can hear, it's quite thick. The pages, I love this page as well. I want to do this one. And this one I just did with colouring pencils. So obviously you're not going to get any kind of residue. This one was with watercolour and not much kind of crinkling effect. So yeah. So the other book that I enjoy working in is Petites Poupees by Hachette Heroes. It's a Disney colouring book, and this was done with watercolours. This was with Neo colours and watercolouring pencils. And as you can see, there is that kind of crinkling effect, but because they are single-sided pages, you don't have to worry about even protecting it with any kind of fixative. I mean, you can go ahead and do that, but yeah, so because it's like that page already protects it. So that was oil pastels, this was watercolour pencils, this was Crayola as a watercolour, and then you see there's some bleed through here from using the Crayola markers. This one was with acrylics. So yeah, there is that kind of crinkled, warped effect, as you can see. The more water I used, the more crinkled it got. This was watercolour and pencils. watercolour and pencils again. And this one I put a layer of gesso. I still need to do this one. So this one looks completely smooth, even though the gesso, it basically yeah, it seems watery when you put it down, but it doesn't make the page crinkly, which is very nice. So I think gesso is good if you want to do acrylic. So another book that I've done acrylic in is A Million Mermaids. So I did some acrylic last year on this page, and I was a little bit worried at first because, like I showed you, when I used water in one of her other books, in Lulu Mayo's books, I had a lot of trouble. But the acrylics seemed to be okay. So I didn't use any gesso on this, I just went straight for the acrylic. And yeah, there is no bleed through whatsoever. So yeah, that came out pretty well. But as you can hear, it is slightly thinner. So that's one page. So in comparison, let's just take this. That's a little bit thicker. And then if we hear the difference on Fragile World, it sounds even thicker. So my other two favourites are these two because they're new, I suppose. So just do a comparison. So we've got two different publishers. We've got Dessain and Tolra and Marabout. So or Marabout. So yeah, this is Dark Fairy Tales, and this is Rita Berman's Europe book, or Voyage en Europe. So yeah, I recently did this page, and as you can see with watercolour, there's no bleed through, but you do have a bit of a warped effect. And in Rita Berman's book, I haven't used any water media in it just yet, so I can't really tell you much about that. But it sounds pretty good quality as well. But there is another Dessain and Tolra book that I bought, which is, oh, sorry for the wobble. So I bought another Dessain and Tolra book, which is a lot thicker. So not all the books from the same publisher have the same kind of thickness. So I did this one with acrylics. Or you can hear it here as well. And that is literally one page. And they're single-sided, so you can see there's a little bit of warping, but not a lot. And yeah, I think you can also, they're also scored here, so you can also rip them out as well. You don't have to worry about if you want to cut it out and frame it, then you can do so. So yeah, it's a really lovely book. It's got kind of like random artists. I want to do this one at some point, but yeah, so it just shows from the same publisher you can get different books. So that leads me on to Johanna Basford. So that leads me on to Johanna Basford. So with Johanna Basford, I actually own 2 copies of the Christmas book, even though I'm not like a huge fan of the illustrations in this book. But I do love the idea of Christmas and illustrations around Christmas, so that's why I bought that one. So this one is a cheaper copy that I bought in Thailand, and this one was a little bit more expensive, bought in France. So this is by Marabout, and this one is by Penguin Books. As you can see there, Penguin Books. So let's have a look inside. Sounds really thick. So I would say this is probably my second thickest book. I think the Dessain and Tolra book was the thickest. Let me just show you that again so you can hear the difference. So this one's nice and smooth, so perfect for something like markers. Whereas this one, it's got a little bit, not texture, it's still smooth, but it's not as smooth. It's got, I guess, I don't know what to call it, but yeah. So I used acrylic here, so I didn't use any gesso here, and the page doesn't have any bleed through, and just a very slight bit of warping, like hardly noticeable at all. So yeah, that's really good on quality. And this one is like already kind of falling apart because it's been glued instead of stitched. So yeah, and this one has a scoring kind of effect. That one I took out from a different colouring book. Yeah, so this one I did with some alcohol markers. Obviously that's going to go through the page, and the paper is more yellow. So I don't really do much in here, just with pencils. Yeah, when I started I was using watercolour pencils, thinking, oh, I can use them for both. I can use them for like a pencil and like a watercolour. But don't buy watercolour pencils if you're going to use them like a pencil, because you will just hurt your hand. So I would just say buy watercolour pencils if you're just going to use them to do that kind of thing. So here I did some watercolour. You can hear it's like the quality is alright. It's not bad, but it's not as heavy as this one. So that's the Christmas books. And yeah, so this one was more expensive, almost 500 baht in Thailand. Whereas I tried to buy some cheaper books in Thailand that were 150 baht, or 148 to be exact. And this one is by Zoe de las Casas. And I like the illustrations, so I bought it, and I didn't want to spend too much money because you were looking at 500, 800, 1,000 baht compared to something like 150, 200, 250 baht. So these ones were produced in Thailand, and the yellow of this paper is even worse. So let's just try and put them next to each other. So as you can see, that quality, that's a lot more yellow than this one. And then if we put this one, so Penguin is a UK publisher compared to a French publisher. Yes, we just happened to get the pattern page. See how white that paper is in comparison to that one. So I prefer the paper to be white, and I think this is why I didn't buy it. When I first saw Johanna Basford's books in Thailand, I saw Secret Garden, and I didn't buy it because of the yellowness of the paper. I preferred it to be white. But what got me into kind of buying colouring books was the fact that I was kind of into card making and bullet journaling and stuff like that, and buying loads of stickers. So I thought, wouldn't it be a good idea if I just bought something like this, coloured it in, and then I can just cut it out and use the cutouts. So yeah, that's kind of what got me into colouring. So the paper on this, it just, for watercolour especially, it was really bad. That's why I ended up using markers a lot of the time. Where is it? I can't find it now. But there was a page, unless I ripped it out already, there was a page I did like with leaves, and it was really bad for watercolour. So I think maybe I used a little bit of watercolour there. Yeah, and then I started cutting it out. But you see how flimsy that is? It's so thin. Apparently it's like made with soy paper or soybeans, or who knows. But yeah, it's just really bad quality. But it was cheap. But I would say, if you're buying something from an artist like Johanna Basford, Kerby Rosanes, Rita Berman, someone like that, then whether you're buying it in the UK, US, France, Thailand, it doesn't matter, because in Thailand, like this one, they did have other versions that were more expensive than this one. So this one was like the cheapest version. So it actually says the price here, that was $15 US. So yeah, it's just like where it's made locally is going to be cheaper for you if it's that same kind of brand by the same author, by a decent publisher. Because this one was done by Penguin Books, and this one was done by Nanmee Books. So I've never heard of Nanmee. So yeah, so that's something to consider. Just like Marabout and Dessain and Tolra in France are very big publishers. So we've done that one. And then the rest of the Johanna Basford ones, like these two, are quite similar to each other. And we'll just have a look at this one. And this is where I did some watercolour, and you see that you get that warped effect. So I think the first time I kind of used this book, this was my first page, and you get a lot of that warped effect. So I think in the Kerby Rosanes book you get like maybe slightly less warping. Same, like this one almost feels similar to the Hachette Heroes Disney book, which is, where is it? Which is this one here. So yeah. So I don't know, it's just like, yeah, I was worried about the piling on this one, like the surface of the actual paper. Like I knew that it should hold up, like this one as well. The surface of the paper is what I was worried about. Like this bit, there's a bit of, can you see it? Bit of peeling going on. But I still carried on, coloured over it. So yeah, that's what I was worried about. So it's not as bad as the Lulu Mayo's piling, but I feel like in Kerby's one it kind of holds up the best, as far as the exciting kind of colouring books go for me. And this one has the thinnest paper out, the Johanna Basford books. As you can hear. So this one I use some Stabilo markers, so you can see there is a bit of bleed through. And this one I use gelatos, but with the gelatos you're supposed to, well, I was trying to add water here on this section. So this is the bit of where I try to add some water here with the gelatos, and you can see how it just ripped the page on top. So I feel like I can't use any watercolour in this particular book, so I can use a bit of water in some of Johanna's other of her books, but not in this one, because it just feels so thin. And that, yeah, that's why I decided to use pastels in the background for this one. And then for the border I did it with some water markers. So I was doing the border with some Stabilo and Crayola, but I did get a little bit of a bleed through on the other side, as you can see here. So yeah. So what I like about this book, what excites me about it, is that you can actually, like the Stabilo pens, they just they fit kind of quite nicely, or even I tried a different pen recently, I can't remember, but yeah, like those kind of like thin pens like Stabilos, you can really kind of get into the lines really easily. So I think on that side of like just the process, it feels fun. So it feels quite different than painting with a brush, so that's something to think about. And then this book, Small Victories, I think like it's really good quality out of all their books. So here I use some Stabilos, and you don't have any bleed through. And then obviously colouring pencils is not going to show us anything, but I felt like, I don't know, like the texture of the paper, even though it feels smooth, I don't know, it just feels like it kind of takes in more of the colouring pencils. Like it just brings out more vibrancy or something. I don't know, it just feels good. And this one is with pastels and watercolour markers, so no bleed through from those watercolour markers. Then I did some oil pastels with colouring pencils, so yeah, no bleed through on this side. And then yeah, at the back I just do kind of my swatches. I like to do that on the same paper. So I'll just show you. So what I mean by testing out is that, like for this one I printed it off because it was a free digital download, so I went to the printer shop and I printed it on some Copic paper, this Copic Selections paper. So I brought some other papers with me just to check what can I take with me, and this is what happened when she tried to put it through the machine. So that was actually Cansen's watercolour paper, and she said that the printer takes 300 GSM, which this is, but it's very heavy. And then yeah, I brought some other ones with me, but I was scared to put it through the printer. I didn't want the printer to break and get in trouble for that. Luckily she was sorry about ruining my paper, so I was like, at least I don't have to worry about, you know, the shop's printer. I was so worried at that point, but I guess at least it's not my printer. Because yeah, this is sort of the trouble I've had in the past with digital, kind of anything, yeah, with paper and printers, trying to find the right printer, the ink running out constantly. So I think for me at the moment, just going to a printer shop is best. So yeah, that's what I used there. It was this Copic selection, so I thought I might as well use my markers, seeing as I am using that paper. And then because I was doing some swatches in my sketchbook and I felt like this paper, as you can hear, it's very thick. It just felt like it was kind of like, I don't know, swallowing all the ink. That the pen was getting very dry, so that's why I felt like I needed to swatch it on maybe actual Copic paper. So this is the Copic manga illustration paper, and so I just did some swatches there. So this paper is a bit smoother, so, and it's made for markers, so it's not going to eat all the ink from there. So yeah, just to give you a comparison, that this paper is a lot thicker, and colouring books are never going to be this thick because they just can't put it through the printing machine. Let me show you some other colouring books now. So now I'll just go over quickly the last few books that I have. So I really love this book, A Million Magical Creatures by Lulu Mayo. I think her books, Lulu Mayo's books, are the books that I kind of discovered her illustration after Johanna Basford. And I feel like even though the paper quality, like I was showing you here, doesn't hold up to watercolour that well, I do still love her illustrations, and you can colour them in colouring pencils, pastels. So this is colouring pencils. I used watercolour pencils and a little bit of my Stabilo marker, and there's no bleed through. Here I use Neo colours and some metallic paint, and there's no bleed through. And here I use some water markers, and again, no bleed through. But the paper is a little bit thinner. And then this is watercolour pencils. So you can hear there. So yeah, I think this book is really great because you have a little bit for Halloween. You have like this one for Christmas, and kind of have, yeah, some for Valentine's. Yeah, maybe that one. There is another one for Valentine's in here somewhere. Like here you've got cute cat ones. But I think it's a good all-rounder. But I thought A Million Mermaids would be my favourite because I started colouring in this one to begin with, and I was kind of going page by page. So I used Neo colours on the first page. Didn't really get a bleed through, but there is that warping crinkled effect. And this was me testing out my acrylic, some watercolour, Crayola markers, pencils and water markers, some more watercolour and Crayola markers, acrylic. Yeah, so like I said, you get that kind of warped, crinkled effect. It's similar how you do in Johanna Basford's books. Yeah, and then alcohol markers. So yeah, I think Lulu Mayo stuff is cute, but I tend to end up going for more like, yeah, like the pastels with the water markers, like this page. So that's that one. And then, kind of similarly to this Disney Petites Poupees by Hachette Heroes, you have single pages in Timea Herczeg's book, but instead of it being Disney, it's more botanical. So if you like colouring butterflies, moths, or just having somewhere to practice. So the paper quality is fairly decent. So yeah, it's got a good substance to it, kind of similar to the Petites Poupees one. And then here I have with alcohol markers, and then it made me realise, why don't I use alcohol markers in my Petites Poupees? So yeah, I might try and use these colours in that book, in this book here. So yeah, so that's Timea Herczeg. Another Disney one that I got, this one is a glow in the dark, and this is quite thin, and they have these glow in the dark textures on it, so you can't colour everything on it. But here I used watercolour pencils and then watercolour on top of that, so kind of like a double layer of water, and there's that crinkled effect. So yeah, I just feel like this one's a lot thinner, so that's probably why I haven't coloured in it that much. But like, you have these kind of pages, like this one are almost coloured for Halloween. It's a massive pull-out page. So that was tempting to do. And it's quite easy as well, because, I don't know. But because it's dark, that could be difficult to do. Speaking of dark, there is another one called Dark Art, but by Hachette Heroes. So it's cut similarly to Dessain and Tolra, but this book, the pages are a lot thinner. So yeah, so this one my husband picked up for himself, but he said I could maybe colour a page or two in it if I decide to. So this is the page I was thinking about colouring for Halloween. Yeah. So this feels almost like printer quality paper, but not as thin. Same with this book. It almost feels like printer quality type of pages in it. So yeah, that's just something to think about. But yeah, I think that's everything now. I babbled on a lot in this video, so thank you so much for watching. And yeah, if you have any tips for myself about digital printing and how I can, like, what paper to use when I take it to the printer, what has worked for you, so that maybe instead of using markers I can use colouring pencils or some other watercolour media doing that. So I would be interested in any ideas for that. Yeah, I think I've covered everything now. That's my colouring book collection. Yeah, if you have made a video about your colouring book collection, I'd love to see it. And take care. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.